we're lost. Really lost.
It's dangerous out there in space. Trust no one.
I'll get you home. We'll make a partnership.
You're a Jedi.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the final review show for Skeleton Crew. Our crewmates this evening to give their thoughts on the finale are our deckhand Dez T, our bosun Scott Whitehouse, our lookout is Andy, and a few others may pop in at some point. I'm your captain, Adam. Martyn is my quartermaster as always. So, gentlemen, let's get into this. The finale then was episode 8, titled "The Real Good Guys." We've all been quite pleased with the series so far on the whole. But Des, how did you enjoy the finale?
Yeah, very good, very good. It maybe not the sort of big battle scene at the end that I was sort of expecting, but yeah, it just ticked along nicely and a nice end. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Scott, how about yourself?
I loved it. Yeah, absolutely loved it. I thought it was packed with excitement and it was emotional at times. There was loads of peril. Those B-wings got me very excited as they appeared.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really loved it. It tied up a few loose ends. It linked back to various things that had happened throughout the series. It perhaps didn't sort of give us all the answers we wanted, but yeah, I enjoyed Stephen Fry's appearance.
Yes.
Yeah. It was excellent. It was, for me, it was everything I wanted out of Star Wars. It made me feel like a 10-year-old kid again.
Brilliant. Andy, how about yourself?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think this whole series has been consistently good fun. There was enough resolution. There was a few bits that I would have thought I would have liked to have known what happens here and there, and I suppose we'll get to that. But overall, I was quite satisfied with it, actually.
Yeah. How about yourself, Martyn?
Yeah, I was like a bit dubious about it before going into it. I thought, this is going to be another case of am I going to be disappointed? But I wasn't. Again, this episode for me really brought out that 80s feel more than any of the episodes we've had before. And I know we'll go into more detail, but the moment I loved this episode the most, and it led up to the rest of the episode being absolutely superb, was the moment when the dad said, "Son, you're talking to a level 7 systems coordinator. Get the bike." And for me, that line, I was just laughing so much. I was like, this is absolutely entertainment, Star Wars entertainment. I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, it was great. Really enjoyed the episode.
Yeah. No, I did definitely enjoy it. But I will say it wasn't my favourite of the series. I did find it very good, but I think you said it, Scott. I felt like there was a few unanswered questions, and it almost ended a little bit abruptly for me. That's not to say I didn't enjoy the episode. It was, there was a lot of action and adventure, like you say, Martyn. And like Scott said, the B-wings and the X-wings coming in, absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed that bit. But do you want to go into those not issues, but the parts that you were talking about, Scott, a little bit more? What you sort of missed?
We were probably, it did, like you said, it did end a little bit. I suppose you could say abruptly. The blockade runner comes down and it ends. And it's a fantastic end, but I did expect there might be just a little epilogue. I kind of hoped Mon Mothma would walk down the ramp and greet the undersecretary, Fern's mother. I just thought there might be a moment, but you can piece together what's going to happen. But there were just a few things that were signposted through the series. Like, I think we all knew that Neil was going to fire the turbo laser at some point, and various things. But there were other bits, like we didn't get much more about the pirate captain, or why the ship originally ended up crashed or buried on the surface. That we didn't get anything about that. And I think there was just a couple of little things like that. There was this again on the parallel planet. There was the statue without a head. We all thought there was going to be some. Yeah. We were going to learn
some significance. Yeah.
That there was going to be something from that, and there wasn't. It didn't really detract from it. I've watched it twice. I had a sneaky watch before work, and then sort of digested for the day and watched it again when I got home. So I thoroughly enjoyed it again the second time. I wasn't perhaps quite as, I was hopping around in my seat really at parts of it, and the bit I loved, Martin talked about Wendell, Wim's dad. I also loved the bit where they went over the canyon, and he was whooping with pleasure. And bonding, father and son bonding in that episode for those two characters was amazing. It was really well done. It was great fun.
Yeah. Dez, how about you? Was there anything sort of significant missing for you, or was it all good?
Not so much missing. I think we all expected, like Scott just said about the turbo laser. You're thinking that's going to be a big thing. It was a thing, but it wasn't.
Didn't take long.
Thing, you think that's going to be the big battle, and that's going to be their main weapon. And when it was, it just fired a few sort of shots away that helped KB get away. And then it was just destroyed. I thought that was a bit sort of, oh, that's gone, sort of thing. So it wasn't the big battle that we was expected, or certainly I was expected.
No, agreed.
But no, overall it was, it ticked. Like Scott said, it did sort of come to a bit of an abrupt end. Whether there's a lot of sort of another series to be made of it, I don't think so. Not for me. But whether you could do a prequel, because we get to know that Jod's going to be or was a Jedi, a foundling almost. Would you have a prequel with their end credits? I don't know whether you noticed with all the end credits that were all. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder if they're going to want to talk about the end credits.
No, please do. No,
but
please go.
But I thought they were all sort of little sort of snippets of Jod's. Sort of being a Padawan and his learning, just little snippets. I must admit, I was sort of just waiting for another sort of Book of Boba Fett sort of scene to sort of turn up, with maybe a Mon Mothma or someone significant just sort of coming in, but didn't happen. So whether that's something that can be pursued, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm not sure. I'm just going to bring in our mutineer, Matt. Here he is.
Hey, Matt, boys.
Hey, Matt.
How you doing?
Hi, Matt.
So, Matt, we've got straight into it. Let's have your thoughts on the finale then.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun. It was that that Goonies kind of 80s kids movie where like the adults don't know anything, but the kids are doing everything. It was a lot of fun. Having all of a sudden having a plan, to take out the pirates. I thought they did a good job. The little glimpse into John Wood's his background. How I saw. I forget where I saw it. It was either on Jedi Defender or it was maybe it was on Twitter. But somebody had said that Jod's he's Kanan if Kanan had never found Hera, kind of thing, So he didn't have, this is a kid, it's like, as a kid he's kind of like, just running like kind of like the kids on Corelli at the beginning of Solo, he's running around just wondering when they're going to get their next meal or something like that. And then a Jedi, it's just after the rise of the Empire, and the Jedi, a Jedi on the run finds him, realizes his potential, but is killed before she can truly teach him anything. So what's he gonna do? So he's a pirate with force powers, and then halfway through this series, he ends up with the lightsaber I made at Galaxy's Edge.
Nice.
I saw that. It was kind of like that Leo DiCaprio kind of.
Yeah. Andy,
But,
how did you feel about Jod's backstory then? Were you satisfied with what they did there?
Yeah, actually, I'd heard and I saw on IMDb that actually cast the Jedi, and I think they must have filmed the scenes, but they left them out. But to be honest, I think they didn't really need to show them. I didn't feel that they did.
No.
I think we got enough of his motivation. It's interesting you're saying would be Kanan without Hera. I thought it'd be more Ezra without Kanan.
Good point.
the street rat. But going back to what was missing, I was really hoping for a post-credit scene about George, what happened with him, because that was the bit to me that was kind of missing out of this, because he just had a very weird reaction at the end. He was like smiling, and it was like something's not quite right here. It's like his reaction doesn't seem to fit in with everything that's gone before, and I was kind of hoping for some sort of follow-up, him getting away or something like that. But oh well.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, they left it well open. They could do a season 2 if they wanted to. I mean, season 2 could start off with Mon Mothma getting into her office and suddenly having a huge discretionary budget because they have, At-Aten was part of the Republic, so they're a Republic world. But yeah, they left it open to whether he was captured or did he get, he could have gotten away. Because he was just standing there, and and it was like, he never wanted. You look at it, and I really believe it was genuine. He didn't want anybody to get hurt. He really he was just in it for the money.
He was definitely in the position to cause a lot more damage than he did if he wanted to. So I think I can agree with that. Do you think, the beginning of his redemption arc, Martin, if we get a season 2?
Yeah. I mean, I think I said last week he can't be redeemed, but after that reaction at the end, and let's be honest, he could have made things a lot worse for the kids and the mother and the father up on the tower if he'd wanted to. So he did have some limitations, I think. So, instead of like trying to pull the guy's fingers back, he could have just, broken his neck or something. I don't know. So, there's definitely a redemption in season 2. But if I can just quickly go back to things that were missing, I agree with everybody what they said about what they thought was missing. And I was going to bring all those up. But they've also created a problem about something, because they said the last communication that they'd had was when they were told that the Jedi had betrayed the Republic, which would have been probably that speech that Palpatine made at the end of Revenge of the Sith in the Senate. Now, so you're telling me, as the Chancellor for 10 years, he was the only person who didn't know about this secret planet on At-Aten. So when he became Emperor, he decided, I'm not going to take that money and use it to build the Death Star. So I'm not sure where they really worked that out quite well enough. But I mean, that's a little nitpick. But
I thought about that, and because like my brain goes into, when I see stuff like that, try to fill the plot holes, and I thought maybe it was something that happened, because the way they keep talking about the great works, that's a High Republic phrase. So I'm wondering if part of the great work was they stayed hidden and they just kind of listened, because the way the supervisor was saying that, it was hey, the last communication that we heard from the Republic was that the Jedi were criminals. So maybe it's like once they were all set up, because they were purposely hidden, that even, there were down the, chancellors didn't even really kind of know. It was kind of like a black ops project, and it just kind of got forgotten about. Possibly. I don't know. I mean, I agree right now it's a plot hole. I think that's something that maybe in season 2 they could address.
Yeah.
The supervisor did say that generations, didn't he? That they've been working on the great work generations, so presumably they'd gone behind the barrier, sort of hundreds of years ago even. So perhaps it was a real need to know, and it wasn't something that an elected official gets told about. But
right, I'm just going to bring in our first mate Shabby, because he's here to join us.
Shabby.
Hey guys.
Shabby, what did you think of the finale?
It was underwhelming. Do you not think? I don't know. I've thoroughly enjoyed this TV show. I think it's but I don't know. I watched it, and at the end of it, I was like, "All right, okay."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like it was weird. They talked about the great work, and we never really found out what the great work was. And and I was expecting the way they talked about the emissary and the supervisor. It's a droid. I was like, because I remember being on the show, and I turned around and said, I think it's going to be someone we know or someone of importance. And I don't know. I was a bit. I enjoyed the episode. I did. I thought the speeder bike chase was awesome. I loved that part, and you know, and I like the effect. But it just ended. You know, it's like, and the other thing as well is Disney Star Wars tend to use this Jedi, not Jedi, quite a few times now. We've seen it with Sabine. We've seen it with, you know what I mean? And I didn't like that either. Well, I was trained by a Jedi, and so you're not really a Jedi, but you've got the Force. You know. I mean, I understand everyone has the Force, but this storyline's been done a few times. So whilst I enjoyed it, it wasn't my favorite episode, and I was left a bit, okay, you know.
Well, I've kind of felt like that through every episode of I wanted a little bit more in all of them. So, I mean, this one's just no different.
Do you think that comes back to it all being a little bit shorter than we would like? Do you think they could
should have been a movie?
Definitely got more into these episodes?
Yeah, it's
I don't
like
know
a
whether
movie they put up in 8 parts.
We were talking before, and I've heard, you know, obviously the other lads turn around and say about a season 2 and so forth. But the thing about it is, I'm tired of watching a season just to wait for a season 2. I would like to have had it had an ending. It did, but it didn't. You know, it's like, you know, I remember Martin, you were saying, oh, when the credits roll and then we'll get an end. We didn't get any of that, you know. And I don't know. There was a few things that were missing for me.
Well, I was going to say, just quickly, and then I'll throw back to you, Shabby. When that blockade runner flew over and he was looking at it, and then it came outside and you saw it flying down to land, I was like, oh, right, after the end credits, we're going to get I think Scott said Mon Mothma or Princess Leia or someone's going to
I thought Mon Mothma,
and it's just going to end, and I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be great. And it just ended, and I was at the end credits, and I have to say, I loved the episode. But because there was no end credit scene, what was the word you used, Shabby, when you came on? Underwhelmed. Because I'd built it up in my own mind that was going to happen.
I think that's what it is. We always, as Star Wars fans, we all have really high expectations of it. But Disney Star Wars seems to do this. If Ahsoka did the same thing, it feels like the last show of every series, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, this one, they rush it. It's like, well, let's just get. It's like they get fed up by the end of it and go, oh, let's just throw it all in and then just go. But just no answers for me. You know, I would like to have known a few more things, like, you know, why this planet was done and what is the great work and who was this. Just little things, or gone back to see what happened afterwards in the aftermath. You know what I mean? Were the kids all right after it? What happened to Jod? That kind of, which. Yeah, granted, but I think we are going to get a season 2 now.
Was Neil ever able to finish his bath?
Things like that.
That kid, as soon as they got back to the planet, he's in the tub, man.
Yeah. So I have enjoyed it. It's been one of my. It has been one of my favorite Star Wars so far. I'll always stick with the fact it doesn't feel like Star Wars to me. It never has, but I've enjoyed it. You know. And I just like to have. I had a bit more closure for myself, you know, a few stories. When you do an episode every week for 8 weeks and you build and then you don't get any ending of that, any closure of what you've built, it's payoff. That's the word I'm looking for. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? I'll see you in a couple of years when you make season 2.
There's definitely still quite a lot of mysteries left unanswered. Des, if they do a series 2, which it sounds like they might, what would you like to see from that? Is there anything in particular?
Well, for me, like I said earlier, I think for a season 2, I'd rather go and do a pre-season and see Jod getting doing his Padawan training and that sort of stuff. But that's just me. But if they go to as a sequel, series 2, well, you've just got to see where he goes. What happens to him? Did he get arrested? Does he get? Are they now? Is Atin now a part of the Republic? Which I'm assuming it is because the barrier's gone. And how they integrate with that? Where does all the money go?
First Order.
You said it last time, Martin, didn't you? So, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
You know.
How about you, Scott?
I think they've spoken very briefly about the possibility of a second series. The writers, haven't they? That they've taken into account the fact that the kids would all be that bit older, so they're obviously going to revisit and find out. Yeah, I think I agree with Des that they'll be looking at how they're integrating initially into the New Republic. It might weave in. Thrawn might take the planet take the gold, and then eventually that ends up with a new order. That could become a whole part of the like Dave Filoni's film in 4 or 5 years' time or something. I think it could be that planet full of gold is going to be, a hot property that everyone's going to be after, and whoever gets to keep hold of it could rule the galaxy. So, maybe that's where it's going to go.
Yeah, maybe. Andy, any thoughts on a second season? Where you'd like it to be taken?
I have a feeling there won't be a second series on this one.
Really?
But I think if there is, the first episode, the kids will have to solve something, and the only way they'll be able to do it is by breaking Jod free out of the Republic prison that he's in, probably. So that will probably be the setup. But I've heard that the kids are going to have a cameo in the Mando movie.
Oh, really?
So
right.
I kind of feel
That's
that actually, instead of a series 2, some of the characters are going to appear in some of the other films. I think Jod's character would do quite well in the Mando universe.
Yeah.
So I think that's potentially where they go. So I'm not saying I wouldn't like a second series. I think I probably would quite enjoy a second series. But if they don't do one, I'll be all right with that as well.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
I would like to see kind of like Dez was saying. I would like this. I don't want them to do a prequel like Dez was saying, but I wouldn't mind like they have something where they have to bring Jod out. Either they break him out of prison or he shows up because he's been on the run again, but they do like flashbacks and show what happened to him as a kid. Like, the Jedi that found him and stuff, and what they, who, because the way they kind of, even his explanation about, she was killed, we got that much, but it was, was she killed by other pirates, with like going after like a bounty with the Empire? Or was it Inquisitors? Because if it was Inquisitors, you'd think they would have taken him too. So it kind of leads me to believe that it was like a bounty hunters or pirates got this Jedi and turned her in for the bounty, and she was able to protect Jod somehow, and so that he wasn't force sensitive, so nobody really was looking for him. See something like that, and then but I would like to see all these you have a planet of very naive adults that are now just part of the greater galaxy as a whole, and how not necessarily focus on them, but you got to see how they're kind of integrating in with the New Republic. The New Republic's going to have to send tons of resources out there to protect them because of all the, that planet is just a huge target right now. So, and also just kind of integrate them into what's been happening, because these people missed the rise and fall of the Empire, the Galactic Civil War. They have no clue what's going on right now. And, it's like, like even the kids, it's a dangerous place out there. And, even though they were able to find people to help them along the way, the galaxy's kind of a dangerous place. So just kind of see how At-Atin kind of evolves without the barrier. And maybe they go and look at, they do have an adventure where they go to the other planets that were, like at Akron, is a mess. They got to send someone there to help stop that forever war. Stuff like that. So there's a lot of potential for a season 2.
I think so, and I think a lot of unanswered questions that would sort of tie it up a bit nicer. But yeah, for me, for a season 2, I'd definitely like to see them go and visit the other planets that were mentioned. I feel like they made mention of it, and we were kind of expecting them to make their way there at some point, but we don't really see anything more about those. So there's still some mystery out there as well. Might make for another adventure at least. What about you, Martin?
Well, I think the success of this show for me has been the fact it's a small scale story told on a small scale. I don't want. If they do make a second season, I don't want to see a big galactic adventure where the Republic are involved and starships coming out of space and having huge battles with Jedi and all this. I want it to stay small scale because that's why I've enjoyed it. And getting back to this episode, I think personally another success for this show is just felt like the sort of films that I would watch when I was growing up. And this episode particularly had so many of those moments. I mean, someone alluded to it earlier when the speeders fly over the mountain. It was just like watching E.T. And you had the supervisor with the big red eye, which was like Hal from 2001: Space Odyssey. Just although we saw them very briefly, but the X-wings and the B-wings. I mean, seeing those B-wings in action was absolutely fantastic. But then there was all the small tropes like the father and son relationship bonding, as Scott said, and I really enjoyed all that stuff. And I like this episode because while you had a bit of action over here, you had sort of like the heartfelt stuff as well, which was quite heartwarming to watch. The kids had sort of reconciled with their parents, if you like, and it definitely had that 80s feel all through it, and I think that's what they were going for. So, and I think they, knocked it out of the park. Really, I really enjoyed it. But I do agree with the others. There's a lot of stuff that has to be tied up, and as I said earlier as well, they've created a lot of questions as well as not answering the ones we already knew. So, I would like to find out what's going to happen. Yeah,
Shabby, open to a season 2?
I was the same as Delvian, to be honest. The thing sometimes, if you rinse Star Wars, it gets it's like Mandalorian. I would have ended the Mandalorian after season 2, and that would have been perfect. It had gone down in history like the original trilogy for me because it had a perfect ending. If I saw the kids in the Mandalorian movie, fair enough. But the thing about it now is there's so many questions that aren't answered, and so I'm like, well, now I'll have to watch a season 2 simply because. But if they didn't make it, I'm exactly the same as, like I said, Delvian. If they didn't make it, I'd be like, if they would have ended this as an ending, I'd have said, you know what, this was great, this was perfect. It was a one-off thing. It's like you on a smaller scale, so it didn't have to be big and extravagant. I would have been made up with that, and this would have gone down. But now I'm like, well, okay, what will a second season be like? Because, it's like the Goonies. The reason they never made a number 2 of the Goonies, because what else could you do? I feel the same way about this. What else can you do with these kids? Be another adventure. All right, fair enough. Then another one. You're like, right, okay. It's like, so whilst I've enjoyed it, a season 2 I will watch whether they do or whether they don't. But I didn't think it needed a season 2.
That's a good point.
Right, shall we? Well, actually, let's get into notes because I know Martin often has notes, but I will ask around the room first. Des, do you have
just a few of the notes I've made? When John put the lightsaber in Hal, shall we call it, and all the droids went dead. I thought very much Phantom Menace vibes to it. And the speeder bike chase, I thought that was great. Again, not quite speeder bikes on Endor, but very sort of the sort of vibes of that. And I've just put at the end, which made me laugh, because it started with the assessment of Wim, and it ended with he's not got to do the assessment. So I just thought it's all about the assessment, which I thought was quite funny. And then Wim playing with the figures, I thought was a nice little touch as well.
Yeah, Scott.
Pretty much covered everything, I think. But I thought the supervisor was quite fun. He was like an enormous astromech droid, wasn't he? Really? Because when he sort of put the lightsaber in, his arms are coming out and going, and I thought that was quite fun. The B wings, the X wings, all that was quite fun. Seeing the tri-laser thing in operation I don't think we've seen that, and you don't see that in Return of the Jedi, do you? So that's quite fun to see it ripping that pirate ship apart. That's pretty much it. I think that'll go.
I will say the supervisor would make for one hell of an action figure, wouldn't it? Giant action figure. Andy, any notes?
I think when Stephen Fry, the supervisor, said to Fern and Mother, "I've been watching you with great interest," there was like a nice callback to Palpatine and Anakin in Phantom Menace. And also the supervisor, it went on at Akron. That same computer core was there, but it was on the ceiling in that same room in the supervisor tower. Same thing as Scott around the B-Wings. That's the first time you've seen a B-Wing firing its weapons in any live action, because they had issues with special effects in Return of the Jedi. They felt that it just didn't work at the time. But other than that, no, I'll leave Martyn to do all the deep dives.
Yeah. Well, we've got Matt to go through first. So.
For me, one thing we haven't really noticed is I really enjoyed the music in this. I mean, like in the end credits, there's that little dun, 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 dun. It was just a neat little. I just liked how, God, dogs. Just those the little things that I liked. It's one thing I always liked about Star Wars is the music. We're saying the B-Wings, it was like definitely somebody was watching Rebels. God, must be somebody at the door. But the X-Wing showing up, I think was really kind of cool. The fact that they had, they kind of used stuff that they found along the way. That they, calling back to Kim to get help and figuring out these little things that they knew along the way. And then, of course, it's like a nice callback to Empire Strikes Back as they just kind of attached his head a little bit, this SM-33's head just a little bit, just to get him working so he could fly the ship. And KB holding his head so he could see. I was laughing so hard. I thought that was a really nice touch. And then he comes walking out holding his head, it's like another one of my better landings. And like you see KB just slide on the ramp when they opens up. There was the little humor things in there that aren't forced humor. It's not slapstick. There's little funny moments. I think somebody brought it up as like Wim and his dad, his relationship. If you look at them, how they were in the first episode. And where they end up at the end, I think was really, really well done. Just the fact that the kids, you look at how the kids start off too, is, and even a couple episodes ago where the team almost breaks apart, they all go in, they're going in different directions. But at the end, they just all, hey, we got to do this, and then they were the ones that come up with the plan to save the day. I thought was great. That's typical, like, Goonies or any of those 80s kids, like Monster Squad's another one. I just watched that with the kids the other night. It's on Amazon Prime now. And I thought, hey, you guys are going to love this one. And it's another one of those where the kids know everything and the parents don't know, kind of thing. It was a lot of fun. So, it's kind of nice to see something like that modern day, because you don't see stuff like that much anymore. And other than that, I think you notice that Fern's mom, she knew that the supervisor was a droid, that the planet was ruled by droids, and that's kind of a juxtaposition to everything else in the galaxy, which was kind of neat. It's usually the droids are practically a slave labor force everywhere else.
Yeah,
and so it's a little juxtaposition there. But overall, it was a lot of fun. They tied up enough to kind of make a complete story, but they left some seeds out there to be addressed. And whether there's a season 2 or they address it somewhere else, with just little things here and there, I'm fine either way.
Yeah. Shabby?
There's a few things. You mentioned before about the supervisor looking like Hal from. I got a Wizard of Oz vibe from that. Like the wizard at the end of Wizard of Oz and so forth, the way it was done. Did you notice, they keep going back to 80s lore and so forth. Did you notice when Wim's dad closed his fist was very Back to the Future? When Michael J. Fox's dad smacks him in the car park. I got that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, George McFly.
Yeah. So I got that straight away. I thought that's superb.
Brilliant.
Jod Nar, when he's looking out the window and the pirate ship's blown up and coming down, very, very like the end of Fight Club. When they're watching the buildings, they're sat at the window watching all the buildings come down and so forth. So I absolutely love that part as well. And seeing the Tantive 4, well, I don't know if it was the Tantive 4, but a blockade runner I loved that. I thought, there's only been a few things like the X-Wings and a lightsaber, but to see, an old school vehicle, the way it landed with X-wings next year. I thought that was pretty cool too. So yeah, there's a few notes for me.
Yeah.
I know Shabby's got to shoot off, so should we get Shabby's rating and then let Shabby
Yeah, let's go.
Rating for this. What we're doing? Rating for the whole show.
Let's do the episode and then the series.
This episode 6.5, I would say, but the whole season 8.5. I've loved it. I have. It's been such good fun, and it's one of those. I always think to myself, would I watch it again? And this I would watch again. Yeah, I enjoyed it that much. So, but anyway, I gotta go. So thanks everyone.
Thanks, Shabby. See you in half an hour.
Yes. Martin, then over to you for notes.
Well, I only have one that's left because everybody else has stolen mine. But
what happens when you go last?
Yeah, it's true. Now, when the moment that the Onyx Cinder flies up out of the atmosphere, it flies up in the air and just sort of pauses for a while, and it flies. You just see it from a long distance shot. That reminded me so much of the scene in Batman 1989 where the Batmobile flies up above Gotham and you just see the silhouette of the Batwing, in front of the moon, and then it sort of just drops back down again. That scene it hit me in the face as soon as because I love Batman 89. But that, I'm afraid, is the only other thing that I haven't got on my list that everybody else hasn't mentioned. So yeah, apologies. That's quite short this week.
My only.
Go on.
Sorry. No, go on, Andy, please.
There was one scene at this episode where Wynn's dad takes the bike off the kid. That was the kid from the first episode that challenged Fern to a race.
That's right.
Yeah. That actually reminded me a little bit of Goonies, where I think the older sort of like...
steal the little girl's bike.
Yeah, yeah. That's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the only thing I had to add was that despite everything that happened towards the end, Wim still wanted to help Jod.
Yes.
And I just thought just goes to show there's still some sort of feeling there. But yeah, that's all there is from me. So, Des, let's get your rating for the episode and the series, please.
I think for the episode, 7.5. Like I say, just wanted a little bit more. But I think the series as a whole, 8, a good 8.
Yeah. Scott?
For the episode 9, and for the series as a whole, 8.5, I'd say.
Nice.
Yeah. Andy?
Episode 8, and for the whole series, I'd go 8.5.
Nice.
Yes, Matt.
I'm with Delvian on this one. I give this episode an 8. It was pretty solid, but yet, like you were saying, I kind of want to give it a little bit more. And overall, the season, I was like an 8.5 or a 9. Really, so overall, it was really good. You know, I'm lucky enough to watch this with my 2 boys, which are actually the target audience, and they enjoyed it every week. They enjoyed it, so I think I got to give them props for that.
Martin.
8 for the episode, and I'm going to be consistent and say 8 for the whole series. I think I've been pretty much an 8. I think except for 1 week the entire way through. Really enjoyed the show. I think the thing that's probably apart from the fact that it's a self-contained story, but the thing that's I've loved about this show more than anything compared to perhaps some of the shows we've had in the last couple of years is the writing was really solid. The characters were really well thought out. There was a couple of characters that you thought might be a bit more, have a bit more to them, and they ended up getting killed like Brutus, as I mentioned last week. But apart from that, I think the visuals have just been the best visuals I've seen in Star Wars for years. I think they've been amazing. I think the characters, as I say, well written, well thought out. You kind of fall in love with all of the good guys, don't you? And you even kind of like some of the bad guys in it. So that always says to me, that's a quality show. And just one thing I wanted to add as well, if you don't mind, Adam, Stu, the Universal Toy Collector Stu, when he came on for his episode that week, unfortunately he couldn't make it tonight. He said something. He said it's a good show, but it's not Star Wars. And I kind of bristled at that a little bit. But as each week's gone by, I've more and more understand where he's coming from. And while I wouldn't agree this doesn't feel like Star Wars at all, I kind of agree with him a little bit more now that this would be a standalone show on its own, and it didn't have to have anything to do with Star Wars, and I would probably still really enjoy it. So from that point of view, I just wanted to put that forward because a lot of people feel that way. I think Shabby said it just a minute ago as well, didn't he? That it's a great show, but it's not a Star Wars show. I wouldn't quite go to that extent, but I do understand the argument.
Can I just add something on to that?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, absolutely, David.
I think one of the strengths of the show, and this is what some of you have mentioned earlier, is that it's quite self-contained and quite small. It's focusing on kids. And it doesn't focus on that larger sort of galactic conflict, space opera. And I think it's the strength of the show, but it's also a bit of a weakness. And I think that's part of the reason why it doesn't feel so Star Wars-y. It's not connected as much to that wider universe. So there's two sides to a coin with it.
Yeah,
and I think they made a deliberate choice not to be part of that larger universe.
Yeah.
At least not right now.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But to add to that though, without the Jedi aspects, the lightsaber, the X-wings and the B-wings, could they have made it as something other than Star Wars?
Oh, absolutely. I think so.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. Because you talk about stuff like, if you make it some generic space story, maybe, but I don't think it would be as popular.
How would they sell it? How would they sell it?
Yeah, and the fact that it's part of Star Wars, the fact that it's part of Star Wars, I think was, part of getting people to watch.
I agree with Matt's argument to an extent, but then you can say that about any show that comes out and all of a sudden is really popular. Like Stranger Things, who would have thought when that was first released that was going to become the phenomenon that it became? So I think it's all about the marketing and that side of things and how good the first episode grips you when you watch it. And then it becomes, what they call it, cooler talk at work, and then it gets passed on, and then it becomes a thing. So yeah, I totally agree. But I think the makers of this show, they've made a really quality show, and I think it probably would have, perhaps you could argue, because I've heard the ratings haven't been very good for this because people are sort of turned off because of the Acolyte.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that the ratings aren't as good, and which will mean that Disney probably won't commission a second season because it's too expensive.
I would wait because I know a lot of people that like to wait till it's done so they can binge it. Watching Andor the first time around, I saw a lot of people. The biggest complaint I saw, people were like, "I like it, but it's so slow."
Yeah.
But if you binge the first season of Andor, that goes away. So I think a lot of people now, they tend, with other streaming services, when they drop everything on the first day and you can binge it, a lot of people like that. So there's a lot of people when these weekly installments come out, they wait till everything's out and then they binge it. So I would be curious to see what's going to happen in like the next month or so, if we could see the numbers on what Skeleton Crew do now, because between like this show and there's other show, other YouTube channels and online social media, the buzz is out there that the show is really good.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people just out there hating on the show like it was like you saw with the Acolyte, or the regular grifter crew that just hates on everything because it gets some clicks. So the general vibe of the show is very positive. So I think you give it some time. Would it be like one of those things where it falls into like cult classic kind of thing, where like good movies that just didn't do well or good shows that just didn't do well until later? Maybe, but I don't know. I think I don't think the chapter's closed on this one yet. It's just with the numbers.
Yeah,
agreed.
Adam, you haven't given us your rating.
Just my rating to give. Yeah. So this episode, I am similar to Shabby. I think we had the similar sort of points of view with regards to this one. So I'm going to give it a 7. And for the series, I think I'm going to go 8.5. I think that's about right. I think that's fair. I don't know, similar across the board there. So yeah. Well,
I'll tell you this,
that-
with everybody.
Go on.
I'm sorry, I mean to interrupt.
That's all right. Keep going.
You know, you think about like other episode, you know, other shows and people have like, you know, where I've really kind of like this. How could you rate this so low? Like, Book of Boba Fett's my one that I really do. I really think there's a lot of potential in that show, but there were so many people that just trashed it. You know, and I'm like, how could you rate this so low? And honestly, with everybody's ratings along there, I was like, I can't argue with anybody's ratings, even if they're not matching mine. I was like, yeah, it's very fair. You know, so
absolutely.
it's been fun.
Excellent. Well, with that, we've got to just say a massive thank you to all of our guests, not just who joined us tonight, but for everyone who's joined us throughout these review shows. Please go and subscribe to their content. Martyn will leave all the links in the description below. And thank you to everyone out there for watching and leaving your comments. We've all enjoyed reading them. So make sure you comment your thoughts on the series and the finale. Leave your rating and press that like button whilst you're down there. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please come back soon. See you later.